What's up? It's Bon. Let's talk about Mass Effect. And today I want to talk about the protagonist for the next game. We've done this before. We've talked about this a lot. I've kind of thrown out my takes on it. We'll do a little bit of that again, but very conveniently, I had an opportunity to steal some content from the Mass Effect subreddit. Here's the post. What kind of protagonist would you like to see in Mass Effect 4? This was posted by Still Professor 7339. A definitely not probably someone's throwaway account. So their post reads, first time posting here, happy to be here, but yeah, what kind of protagonist would you like to see in the next game? Different races, or some backgrounds, ideas, etc. What I want is for the character to be sort of the opposite of Shepard, a criminal instead of a soldier. It doesn't really give a darn about having to save the universe, at least not initially. It may be a little controversial, but I still kind of want to have a more traditional character arc where the character will undergo a significant change depending on the player choices. I don't hate this idea. This is kind of my only issue with this is I suspect that, and maybe it won't matter, the upcoming Star Wars game from Ubisoft, I think, is going to 1000% have this arc where the lady we're playing as will start off as this kind of, criminal, and then will end up being the savior of the universe in some capacity. Now, OP did clarify here. They said, want to add a little context to my idea. I imagine the game is going to take place 10 to 20 years after Mass Effect 3, so the protagonist would probably have been alive to experience. I assume the Reaper War is what they mean. I know that there would be some speculating that would take place generations later because Liara looks older, but that would probably be a really bad decision. The story needs to continue from Mass Effect 3, so having it be far removed from those events would feel way too disconnected. Same with former squad mates. I think we'll probably see new squad mates take over, but the old ones need to appear. So if it were to say 300 years later, every squad mate except the Asari and Krogan would be dead. And that's a point I've talked about and I agree with. I don't think the best move for the next game is to wipe away the trilogy and the characters from it. I think after what has happened with BioWare, with the what seems like it's kind of tough development of the Dragon Age Dreadwolf, with the extremely rough development and release of Anthem, and then the at least controversial release of Andromeda, BioWare needs a win, and we'll see what happens with Dreadwolf. I hope it's a win. I think it will be, but if it's not, there is, and I hate this kind of clickbaity sensational take, but Mass Effect might be BioWare's last shot. Like, if it comes out and it's not very good, in a day and age where companies are spending $200+ million on the development of games, if one tanks and fails, that can end the studio. And I believe this just happened with the studio that made Gollum. Now, while that was a historically terrible game, it still, it was a bunch of people worked on it and they tried hard. And I'm sure we're hamstrung by issues outside of their control. And that studio got shut down. They're not going to make games anymore. And they even had a contract to make more games already. So I don't disagree with this. I actually don't hate this idea. I have a different idea myself, which we'll talk about. But this idea of playing like a non-Alliance character, a non-Shepard, and maybe kind of being brought into the fold, maybe like a Liara knows you from her days as the Shadow Broker, and maybe she worked with you, and maybe we get to make a character that she brings into the fold to help with some big grand thing that would allow us, if it takes place shortly after the third game, to see old characters maybe in their new roles and things they're doing. I don't know. I actually don't hate the idea, to be totally honest, even though I'm pretty dead set on wanting Shepard back. And a response from someone else here is Bomb Jaco says, first off, I think they should be human. Adding alien protags would be an absolute crap show to try to write and plan everything out for the rest of the game, and would really suffer. Plus, although it's been a massive galaxy. Humanity has been the in to it and the lens through which we understand what's going on. As for backgrounds, I agree to an extent that possibly it shouldn't be military type, as we've had that twice now. A cool concept for potential background would be a legacy, someone who is a descendant from a hero in the Reaper War or something like that, but chafed at them being lumped with their family, so they sought to forge their own path. Some kind of smuggler or something like that would be cool too, growing up in the underworld and having to forge their own path. So I'm not really as big, like I hate the idea or the theories I've seen of people being like, oh, we should play as Shepard's kid or something. Like, no. One, I don't want the game to take place that much later. Two, I either want Shepard as Shepard or I want something totally new. I think doing some weird, like a clone or their kid or something, bad idea, in my opinion, at least. I agree with the alien protag thing. This was a topic on Twitter in the last week or so, or on social media in general. And I agree with like Robot Radio, who does the Mass Effect Lorecast. They summed it up as well as I've seen anyone do it. And it's similar to what was said here by Bob Janko, where they say that the two things are that, one, the Mass Effect franchise, at least so far, has been a franchise allowing us to experience and interact with this future, galaxy-wide story from a human perspective, because that's what we connect to directly. And I think that's still the best way to go. I think that is the kind of game this is, just from a maybe nostalgia or history standpoint. But then there's also the reality of game development and the way that they would have to adjust the way that we experience the game to account for us playing as a Batarian or a Quarian or an Asari or a human. What you tend to see happen, at least in my opinion, and from what I've seen, is that in a lot of games that do this, where you can pick, say a game like Skyrim or something like that, where you can pick different species and such, you end up with a generic character because you can only go so deep, and the interactions that individual can have in the world become more generic. And sure, like if you play like a cat boy, and maybe they do have a few lines throughout the game that mentions that you're a cat boy, but they otherwise have to make it like really generic, because you could be a lizard boy or a giant or a dwarf or whatever. Like it's and that's what would happen with a Mass Effect, where we could be any species as the protagonist. They would, the difference in the way the story would play out as a Quarian or as a Batarian would be huge, and it would be to the point where they would basically have to avoid it, which would stink. Where instead, if we just stick with the human protagonist, we could have all kinds of backgrounds as a human, that we could have all kinds of things that they would directly address, that we are a human, and here's all of the weight and the baggage that comes with that. So I completely agree there. You'll see mine is on here as well, and I've talked about this a lot. Shepard or a fresh N7 graduate. I've seen people, and some of the responses in here are kind of like, well, I think that'd be too similar to Shepard if we did a fresh N7. So my whole thing with Shepard is, I just think that, kind of like what I was saying before about nostalgia and getting BioWare and getting the Mass Effect franchise kind of back on track, I think that Shepard's the best vehicle for that. I think for OG fans, it would be a nice nostalgia hit. I think for new fans, it would reintroduce the galaxy and the Milky Way and what has happened, in a good way, or a straight from the source way. You have to think about fans that came in as Andromeda fans and maybe never played the trilogy or didn't really care for it as much because it was so old and they just couldn't get into it. It would even be a way to bring those people in my opinion. So, and I just want to hear Mark Meer and Jennifer Hale do their thing at least just one more time. We'll see. But the fresh N7 thing, for me, the reason it's so interesting is we could be, a female or male character that has endless backgrounds that they could actually account for in the story. my whole thing about like, oh, they'd be too similar to Shepard, and actually I disagree with that. My whole thing with this is that if we got to play as a fresh N7, it would be impossible to ignore that a huge part of becoming an N7 in the post-Reaper War galaxy would be acknowledging who Shepard was and the legend of Shepard. And it would be kind of cool to experience like the fact and the fiction of that as this new character who is kind of in the shadow of Shepard in some capacity. It would be a fun way to interact with, you know, say you play this fresh N7, you're helping out Liara with whatever things are going on, and you show up to Rannoch because you need to get some part for a ship or something, and you know, you walk into one of their diplomatic buildings, and there's Tali Vas Normandy or Tali Vas Rannoch, maybe, you know, at that point. And you would be able to get that connection with like the trilogy through meeting Tali, but she maybe isn't on your crew anymore. She's, you know, doing her own thing now. Maybe you find out what happened to Shepard through her, or through seeing Rex somewhere, or seeing Garrus somewhere, or seeing, you know, and so they can still connect to that old story without forcing those characters into being part of the crew again and things like that. And where that could make kind of everyone a little happy. That's my big thing with that. I won't waste too much more time on my own idea. Now, what you do see here is a pattern. Shepard, pretty simply controlled there. This does drive me nuts. This whole thing of like, well, yeah, they could do the control ending, and he's gone, and Shepard's gone crazy, and we have to fight the Reapers again. No, please don't. Please no. Please no. This Dragon Age Origin thing, this is like the alternative to what I've said, is being able to pick a different species and things like that. I just don't think it's a good idea, but that's just my opinion. This person throws out that it seems like Shepard is a potential choice for the protagonist. I agree. I think that's pretty likely. If I can remember, I'll put a video down in the description where I talked about that and why I think it's going to happen. But they kind of throw out a similar idea as OP about playing like a non-Shepard character. Same here with this play as a human, non-soldier. This person here puts in the galaxy after the destruction of the Reapers got divided. The military assumed direct control of the populations, and they want Reaper tech to help create more powerful peace and prosperity for all. Great scavenging hunt has begun. Asari, Turians, Solarians, humans are rival factions, not at war, but getting there. Minor factions pick their sides. Humans are in the lead since a majority of the Reaper fleet and Citadel ended up on Earth. Protagonist is ex-Special Forces Cat 6 on the path to redemption, but an events of the galaxy interfered, so they are hired by the underground shadow organizations that run the black market for Reaper tech. Officially, they are outlaws, but I think they meant the plot thickens. This is something I've kind of thrown out. This is a similar idea to what I've said. Besides the end here, is that I think we're gonna see in the post-Reaper War, this next game is gonna be like a political thriller. I don't think we're gonna have a big bad show up. I think we're gonna see that like the Citadel Council is going to be weakened by the events of the war and the moving of the Citadel and the way things all happen. And we're going to see other factions trying to grab power while the Citadel tries to get back on its feet and reestablish its control over the galaxy. And I think that's where the story is going to go. And I think that's great. I don't hate this idea. I actually kind of like it. So we have someone here who also says human. This person says rider. All the power to you. I don't think that's going to happen, but maybe it will. We'll see. And then finally, the Commander Shepard. So, this is a cheap video to make in some capacity. I do think it is fun and interesting to bring in these perspectives from other people in the community. I especially like it when I agree with them or when they're similar to my ideas, but it's cool to at least consider others, including a few of the people here who said something like, us being like a non-alliance, a non-N7, an anti-Shepard. If we can't be Shepard, I actually love the idea of being like the opposite of Shepard, at least in some capacity. So that's the idea. I enjoy doing this. Down in the comments, let me know what you think. Even if you just come in to say hello, what do you want from the next protagonist? Do you want it to be Shepherd? If it is Shepherd, how do you want it to be handled? If it's not Shepherd, what would you prefer? Do you want other species? Do you want it to be human? Tell me everything down below. I am very curious about your answers. If you like this video, if you like Mass Effect, you want more info, more speculation, more news when it actually happens, please subscribe to the channel. Like the video if you did. You can find me all over the internet as Bond Diesel, including on Twitter and Threads, and over on Twitch where I stream a few times a week. Check out my weekly gaming podcast, The Echo Cast, right here on YouTube or on any podcast platform. That's all I have for this one. So until next time.